Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, wow, today was a really hard day.
Dear Diary, I find sometimes my life can be hard.
Dear Diary, it will pass and it will be okay.
Dear Diary, I feel like today is going to be...
Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Dear Diary, welcome world to the Indigo Diaries. And first, let me introduce you back to Series 1, The World Through Your Eyes, with me, your host, Natasha Hickling. The Indigo Diaries is a podcast for those who want to learn about ADHD through others' experiences. And thank you everyone for coming in and listening. If this is your first time, then welcome. And if you're returning, then welcome back. And welcome back to another episode of Series 1. I'm so excited to get this next guest on. And I'm just so excited to be back with Series 1. I just love meeting people and talking about their stories. And just a reminder that you'll be getting a lot more guests in this series. And I'm so excited to introduce our next guest who wants to share their story with the world. So since starting Indigo Hub, I've been venturing out into the world of social media and the mystery of the number one LinkedIn. And I'm so grateful that I started. I was a bit tedious at first. Like, do I go on it? And I'm so excited because this guest is one of the reasons why I'm so excited I went onto LinkedIn. And I'm very grateful to find a great, amazing connection on there. So without a doubt, let me introduce Miriam. How are you doing today?
Great. What an introduction. I hope I live up to it. No pressure, anybody.
No
Thank you, Tasha. It's such a pleasure, getting to know you also. And I'm grateful that we got to meet each other on LinkedIn.
Yeah, me too. So let me tell you a bit about Miriam. Miriam is a speech language pathologist in schools, ABA clinics, and in her own private practice, the Bubblespace. She teaches visual, cognitive, and language constructs to aid generalization for communication and conversational skills. Through pursuing her master's in social work, she learned how to coach skills that support the development of emotional regulation, attachment, and relationships. She started teaching in the classroom to figure out how to effectively integrate these vital skills: emotional regulation, communication, problem-solving skills, and social skills. And I'm so excited for her to come and speak to us. So let's get started. Where do you want to start your diary today?
So I'm in this amazing place where COVID has brought a lot of change into everyone's lives.
Yes.
And one of the things that has brought for me is sort of open the door to the world, in that everyone is now accessible to everybody. I'm now in Georgia, and, I'm able to speak to somebody across the world. And what a wonderful, wonderful thing that is. And for me, because of that, I've been able to start doing trainings for therapists and teachers and anybody who really wants to help others with social emotional learning or social skills and things like that. And that has just been incredible. To think that I, in my own office, can be spreading connection, and at a time when there's so much disconnection, is so meaningful to me. And I'm just so grateful for that good part of what's going on in the world, and everything that entails. It's a blessing to be able to share these skills with the world.
I really love that there's so much, try and create connection when there's so much disconnection. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what sort of connection are you bringing?
So we all know relationships require work. Everybody knows that. In anyone's personal life, if you've ever been in a relationship, which hopefully everyone has or is in a relationship, and I don't even just mean romantic, I mean any relationship with a coworker or with a child or with a parent. People are whole human beings with our challenges and with our blessings and with our talents. And so there's always going to be some type of challenging engagement. And if you haven't yet encountered it with someone that you're in a relationship with, you probably aren't in a deep enough relationship with them. There's this myth that oh, it's not a good friendship if there's areas of friction. That's something I really don't believe. I believe that every relationship requires work. And with that knowledge, I don't think there's anybody who can't work on a relationship, and that, to be able to improve in their connection and be able to improve with one human being connecting with another human being. And that also includes yourself, connecting with your own self, to be able to have that feeling of like, hey, I'm okay. I can breathe in my own body. I can be present with myself, even with the parts that are less pleasant. So that ability is really what I'm hoping, that's what I do. That's what I do, as I teach people the specific skills. That's the name of my company is Skills for Connection. And I teach specific skills. So what that looks like is I really try to like break it down as concretely as possible. So with my speech language part of me, I, have really tried to like make constructs of what type of skills a person needs. So whether it's topic maintenance, whether it's being able, understanding the flow between things, the connections, the inferencing, and how things are interrelated, or whether it's something that's perspective taking, like, okay, so who am I and who is the other, and what's the interplay between the two, that I have a self and the other person has a self and their own world, and how do I understand their world and how do I connect with their world and things like that. So I've created very specific, designated type of constructs that I teach. So instead of having like a specific lesson plan for social emotional learning, they'll actually, our students and our, whoever's using this will learn the core constructs, the core like containers for these concepts, and be able to apply any specific situation that they're dealing with personally. So I'm teaching the therapists how to do this. And this is what I did privately, is I would teach the students how to do it. And then I would train their parents and their teachers and their therapists. So everyone is using a consistent model. And people walk away with like, okay, I really know how to have a conversation. I really know how to, and I know so many of my clients who I've worked with who have ADHD, especially when the brain is going so quickly, you can miss some of these cues. And it's not that it's not logical or that they wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you this, but sometimes when you're like in a pattern, even if let's say someone who has then slowed down, whether with medication or sensory integration or, any of the emotional regulation type of exercises, they sometimes just even having it spelled out gets you back on the road of like, okay, this is how I would like to direct myself. This is how I would like, let me understand what's going on. Like, okay, so it's not that I can't understand it myself. Like I didn't create connection, obviously.
If only.
Right. Like whoever, I mean, only God can create that, I think. But like, the capacity for, two different beings to be together, there are skills that we can learn to improve. And so that's what I do.
I love that it's skills that we can learn, because it's this thing of you either have it or you don't. And that's what it's been perceived in my life. You have these social skills, or you're socially awkward or whatever. And it's really nice that and I really like that you don't just teach it in a lesson, you're teaching the basic skills that are versatile for every aspect of people's lives. So kind of, I just think that's fascinating. I was absolutely entranced when you were talking. So
it's incredible. It's so powerful.
Yeah, very, very powerful. So tell us kind of, you were saying that it kind of, with people with ADHD and their brains, thinking that, what's kind of your experience with kind of using your system with people with ADHD?
So first of all, ADHD has its challenges and its strengths. So one of the things that the strength is, like, very often I'll work with someone who has ADHD and they're very bright and they understand it quickly. So it doesn't take a long time to learn ideas. The challenge is, let's say, integration, like the initiation, or let's say the follow through to be able to do it. But like with everything, it's a skill. Skills require repetition. They require, practice and things like that. So I'm thinking of like one specific, I'm going to change the details. So if you think I'm talking about you, any of my clients, I'm not talking about you. This is it's a conglomeration and mixture of a lot of people. So no one take this personally, but I'm thinking of a mixture of type of thing. I'm going to change the details, but let's say a male that I worked with and who, let's say 14 years old, who just started medication. And I had spoken to his mother about it for a very long time, trying to, she was very torn about it. She really didn't know, should she do it? Should she not do it? And it was getting to a place where he was really struggling. So he started, and he loved it. He said to his mother, he got on top of it, and he was he would take in, it was worth it to him, because he felt like, okay, everything has slowed down and I had like a little more of like a ability to engage with all the things that are going on. But what hadn't caught up were his social skills, because he had missed a lot of these cues. So he would walk into the room, for example, and not necessarily make eye contact with me, who was working with him as his therapist at the time, and sort of just like sit down and look at the desk, and we practiced, okay, so like we're this shared space. So one of the concepts that I have actually in my book that's coming up, Bubble Double, is that people, when they're engaging, are sharing a space. And I wanted to make it very concrete for people. So, and there's rules in this space. So it's sort of a bubble that two people are inside of together. And there's rules of this bubble. So if you want to enter the bubble, you got to say hello. That's how you get in. Otherwise the bubble pops. Like the other person's like, hey, what happened? You can't share space with the other person when they're, there's certain rules that you follow in these connections. And so like we would talk about how he would come in and, saying hello. And what I found was that he was able to do it when we practiced it. And when we cued it, then we had to like figure out how to generalize it into other areas of his life. So then I would talk to his mother and she would practice with him, saying like, check in with me, see what's going on in my world. And sometimes he would talk to me or talk to her more in real life. He would talk to her and she was like in the middle of, feeding the baby, trying to cook dinner or whatever. And he was like, and the next day, like, I thought I told you that I needed to get a poster board. And she was like, whoa, like, I didn't even hear you talking. Like, you gotta check in with me, see what's going on in your person you're connecting with's world, what's going on in their world, in their perspective, to be able to see, are they available to talk now? Is this a good time? Is this not a good time? And that's something that, that's one of the tools that's so helpful, like for him, like just like starting the conversation, like check the other person, what's going on, and then engaging with them in that way. And it's part of the curriculum is a check, match, and stick that we have in the Bubble Double is that concept. It's coming out soon. So if you're looking for it, you might not find it on Amazon yet, but it's coming soon.
I'm literally like, right, where can I pre-order this? So firstly, I was about to ask you what would the model look like, but you already answered that. So you obviously have to tick that off because I've actually wrote that down because I'll forget. But what I love is that analogy of the bubble, because what I find with a lot of people with ADHD is when it comes to understanding concepts, sometimes it can be quite hard. So when you made that visual and it's concrete, like, oh, it's a bubble, I need to, and it helps us to remember with the working memory, right? Because you've got that kind of that concrete example. But the thing that I want to just say about that is your thing about that check thing, because I hear so many times with my clients where they go, like, they're just not listening. And is that person ready to listen? I really like that. That's incredible.
It's real. I find the thing why I feel like this is helpful is because my goal is never for my client to stay with me. Like, my goal is for my client to never stay with me again. I want to give them all the tools so they walk away and they have all the skills. Like, so teaching very clear constructs that have visualizations. My tagline used to be now I'm doing skills for connection. I still see some clients one-on-one, but mostly I'm doing skills for connection. But when I was doing full-time clients, my name was The Bubble Space, because that was all my skills were about this bubble space.
Yeah.
And my tagline was visualizing social skills, because it's that visualization of like, okay, well, what can it look like? Like, even from a practice perspective, or like, okay, what are the tools? What's my checklist? Very, very clearly. Okay, check, match, stick. And okay, and then there's all the tools that fit into those, into those spaces of check and match and stick. That they're in my the children's book, the Bubble Double book. That it just sort of it concretizes it. It's a kid's book, but like people have asked me like, oh, could I use it for my middle schoolers? And I'm like, listen, the illustrations are not for middle school kids, but the concepts are, like the ideas are everyone, elderly people, me, everyone needs them, like we all are working on relationships. We all are working on improving ourselves and trying to develop, better life skills. So like having like, okay, well, this is my agenda. This is my path, my clear direction. Like I find like I'll use sometimes for myself, even if I'm not really doing a social skills program for myself, We
all need it. I like that. Like we all need it. And it's just, what I like is because sometimes with a lot of people, they use so many different systems and they use so many like, oh, I've took this from here, but I love it that it's very straightforward. Like, obviously there's a lot more to it than the check stick, but it's very clear, which for me wouldn't make me run. If I see something that's too difficult before I even start, I'm gone. And I can tell you that a lot of people with ADHD are very similar to that. They're gone because it's too hard to even start. The fact that it's clear and that visualization, I think, is really key.
I really am I'm so grateful because that's how I think. I think about the world very visually. I know I was like researching a little bit like what percentage of people are visual learners. Like I had thought it was like much bigger percentage, but like for me that's so clearly how I think. Like I think in pictures, meaning like I use words to communicate, but that's how I think.
Yeah. There's a study that's like some people think in words and other people think in pictures. I'm a picture person.
I love it. Picture's worth 1,000 words.
But then sometimes you can't get it from a picture into words. That's the hardest.
Yes. There's like one of the exercises, the language exercises we do is that we'll, have like one person on one side and one person on the other side, and they're trying to communicate what their picture is and to get the other person to understand, either to make the same picture on their side or they can't see each other's, projects. Yeah. But that skill of being able to describe what it is that's in your mind. And sometimes that takes time, and that the process of like, okay, well, what's the sequence here? What am I going to say first? What am I going to say then? Or next? What am I going to say last? Which is also a different language construct type of thing that we do. My favorite thing that I do for my clients who have ADHD is like this mindfulness exercise. And I love it because, as I said, like I like when I have a map of what to do.
Yeah.
And so I have this worksheet and it goes through the 5 senses. And I was just sort of trying to think like, okay, for myself, if I'm trying to teach a young child about mindfulness, like they need a to-do list. Like I can't just say like, okay, listen to my voice. Okay, now breathe and get in touch with your surroundings. Like it needs to be more concrete than that. I mean, I think that students are able to do that, but I think that like, especially starting off, having a very understanding what it is that they're doing sometimes lets the defenses go down, and like they don't have to like, don't make me be calm. I don't know what thoughts are going to come up. I have to run away from them. It's a little scary. But if they have they know what's coming, it just sort of helps them. So this exercise, like it goes through all the different senses. Like, okay, what are things that you see in your environment? And then like we'll do it together as a class. I can do it as a group session, as a group lesson. And they go through, okay, these are all the things that, I see. What are the things that you hear right now? And hearing is amazing, especially with my students who have ADHD. It is incredible to hear everything. It is a superpower. It is incredible.
Yes, I agree with that.
Like things like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, what is that incessant thinking? I didn't even hear it until they brought it to my attention. Like, and all these things. We talk about it because so many of my students who are struggling with ADHD, and I say struggling because they feel like it's a burden to them. Like they feel like this is this heavy thing that I'm carrying. It's like this terrible, that's really, I hear from them. That's what they're saying to me. Yeah. So like, I really work on, when I'm talking to kids to be able to like, let them see like, this is incredible. Like you are able to like be in touch with the world in a way that other people cannot. It comes with its challenges, but this is an incredible opportunity. Like if you were an ER nurse or you were, a parent, and you have to like be paying attention to the pot on the stove and also be paying attention to your child, you have that capacity to actually hear both, where like another parent who's focusing might not hear their child crying while they're focusing on stirring their thing. You will have that ability to make sure that all the things are juggling are being taken care of. So one of the things that we do is like, I show them, okay, so the teacher, what does the teacher want you to think here? What does the teacher want you to be listening to? Or the teacher wants you to be listening to their voice. So like, let's say they have this whole long list of things that they were thinking about. They were hearing. They were hearing the fan. They were hearing the someone walking down the hallway, someone's chair moved, someone rustled, and the list is literally like, we can get like 20, 25 things. Like even in what I think is a quiet classroom or a quiet session. And then we circle, okay, well, what does the teacher want you to be listening to? And sort of even just doing the exercise helps them understand their own ADHD, because they're like, that's what's going on. Like, I've had kids say to me like, oh yeah, like that moment of like, thank you for understanding what's going on. Like, and really it's for them because like I understood it before they understood it. It's not that I'm understanding them. They feel seen and they feel validated, but really it's for themselves to feel like, oh, there's a rhyme and a reason to this. I'm like, okay, so that's the thing I'm going to be trying to focus on, or that's what they're expecting me to be listening to, instead of the fan in the background, or the other classroom that's going out to recess now. Like my teacher's mad that I'm saying, oh, they're going to recess, because she thinks that I'm going to be talking about what she's talking about.
Wow. So firstly, I just kind of want to say back to the understanding of like challenges. I mean, I can relate to that. I mean, I see it every day in myself, but it's really refreshing to hear someone that is a professional that works with people with ADHD say that, because it's very much focused so many times on the negative and on the challenges. And what you're doing there is you're going, wow, like look at what they could do, like with the hearing. And I agree. My parents used to say I've got the ears of a bat, because I can hear everything in the house. Like every conversation, I can actually move my ears, but every conversation I can hear, and every little thing, they're like, you can't like do anything. So I really like, it's very refreshing and very pure. And I can feel that that's I'm relating to a lot of what you're saying. And I think that's why, because you've got that perspective that you see the world very differently. And that's just, a great thing. It's just incredible.
I see it because so many of my people in my life, and like, I don't know, I don't know if I have ADHD or not. I don't have ADHD. I never went to get diagnosed. I'm figuring out how I need to live regardless, whatever the label or no label or whatever it is. But like one of the things that I find is that I'm thinking of another client that isn't specifically that client. And she would always tell me that she felt like that she would be struggling, that she felt like she had no control. She felt like I can't control myself. The teachers are yelling at me and they don't realize I can't control myself. And I remember like sitting with her and trying to be with her in that space, but also like I had this like piece inside of my heart that was like, like it couldn't totally accept it.
Yeah.
And as I worked with her like months and months and months, I remember at one point she said to me, she's like, oh, when I'm feeling anxious, I can have complete control of myself. And that moment, I know it sounds like a terrible thing to say, that, oh, anxiety, like it's such a terrible thing, but she saw for herself, like she isn't somebody who cannot control herself. It's a matter of when she was anxious that, like, if she was walking down the street, she wouldn't want someone to think that she's dumb. She was anxious that someone would think that she's dumb. So she would control certain things when she was walking in the street. Yeah. So that was sort of like, I loved when she said that. And it sounds like a crazy thing to say, like you love when someone's anxious. And so then they modify their behavior. But then she saw, like, I am not a victim to anything. I'm not a victim to a diagnosis. I'm not a victim to an internal struggle. I am somebody who uses what I have, and I can, learn how to work with the things that I'm dealing with. So that opened a door for her. Like that, it was literally a turning point in her work, because until then she was like, they don't understand me. I can't control myself, and sort of like throwing it all off of her, like, right. And onto them. And no one can understand me. And it was affecting her connection and affecting her relationships and affecting her behavior. Because if you believe I can't control myself, then definitely you cannot control yourself, because whatever we think is what we bring into the world. It sounds cliche, but it's so clearly the case. Yeah. And as soon as she had that paradigm shift of, oh, there are situations that I can control myself, she started thinking, okay, so what is it? Now I can sort of hack into myself. Like, okay, so in those situations, what am I feeling? Okay, so my heart is beating a certain way. I'm feeling a certain amount of anxiety, tuning into her body with that mindfulness again. Like, what is happening inside of me? The same skills that we were using to help, to help her understand, like, oh, okay, so I have ADHD, but I have times that there's something that's bigger than my ADHD, and that's my desire to connect. I don't want that person to think I'm weird, because they won't be my friend. So that desire to connect is deeper than any ADHD or any diagnosis.
I actually like air clapped because I just wanted to be like, yes, but I didn't want to interrupt you because you were on a roll. But it's just like what I just wanted to go back what you said about that. One of the concepts you used, like with that boy with the listening to the teacher, right, when he's in a classroom and you're like pointing it all out and saying, right, there's 25 things. Wow. I mean, that's just an incredible thing as it is. And then going, okay, so what does your teacher want you to, what do you need to pay attention to right now? And then they see it, because sometimes people can't understand it when you're so consumed with it. And I really like that you're kind of with people's own situations, you're almost like giving them the skills to be able to learn about themselves. And I just thought it really related to what you just said about that other client. It's just kind of learning to live with it, right? And learning to build the skills to, this is what I've got and this is what I'm moving forward with.
Right. And that to me is so important. And it's important for me as personally, as a human being, that concept that like especially I feel like the world is so much like putting ourselves in victim mode, don't judge me. Okay, let's take a step back and let's look inside of ourselves. Okay, let me not judge myself. Let me just build my own self-confidence, my own self-love. And then it doesn't really matter if other people are judging me. Okay, so I'm not going to have those opportunities. Those are not my opportunities. I have other opportunities and I can use who I am. And I feel like helping kids and people thinking about like, okay, who am I and what is my choice? What can I create? What can I create for who I am? And what with all my, again, like the human being, with all my wonderful traits and all my challenging traits, like let me bring it all to the table. And that's something I don't know you so long, Tasha, but just with the brief amount of time that I've met you, I feel like that's something that you're really doing. It's inspiring. I see it. I see like, oh, this thing that I care about so much, like Tasha's doing it. She's got this. Like, she's using the different things that you've had in your life, your different experiences, and you're bringing it to the world. You're not complaining. You're not throwing it at anybody. You're saying, okay, who do I want to be with it? How can I give to the world? How can I flourish and nurture and spread more love and more connection? Which I love.
Thank you.
So really,
wow, you're making me blush. Thank you so much. And I honestly,
who you are is coming through.
Thank you. No, you're all good. I honestly didn't pay her to say that.
She didn't. Sorry, I just say it as I see it. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, always. So we're going to take a break here because I'm getting hot in Malaysia and I need to put my fan on for 5 minutes. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to absolutely just keep exploring with Miriam because this is absolutely fantastic. Great conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we're out. If you would like any more information on Indigo Hub or our Indigo support group, then please check out our website below or our link to our social media platforms or email at indigohub.adhd@gmail.com. If you would like to offer any comments, feedback, get support, or if you're interested in the world hearing your story, then please reach out through any of our avenues. As said before, have a positive week. Check in again later. And we're out. Shh, the Indigo Diaries. Welcome back. We're kind of refreshed. Both done what we need to do and we're ready to get back. But as always, we ended up talking and then it was like, oh no, let's go back on air. Every single time. It's like an absolute, it doesn't matter who I have on here. It's like intermission tradition. Seriously, we just start talking about something. It's like, oh, okay. So if you didn't join us before, then rewind now. We were talking to Miriam and we were talking about her amazing kind of just journey to kind of, and just the amount of support that she's bringing, not only for ADHD, but for skills, for social skills to two children and two adults and two professionals. And that's what this is about. And very, very lucky to have her today. So we're going to carry on. So I want to kind of know, we learned a bit about what you kind of been doing, but how did you get there? I'm fascinated.
So I always was, I mean, like that, I feel like people have like at their core who they are. It's like I always loved connection. It's, it's scary. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want to share too much because then we're going to be too connected. And then the ramifications of that is a normal, natural component of the ebb and flow in a relationship. But I've always been passionate about that. And I remember when I graduated and I had a summer, and through that summer in between, I was about to decide what I wanted to major in for my bachelor's. And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, so what should I do? So I knew I wanted to work in like a therapy or something like that. I wanted to teach. But I felt like I wanted it to be like more, like I wanted real skills to be able to teach. So even if I taught in the classroom, I wanted to have, not that educators don't have the skills, but I wanted to have like a science component to the skills. So I was observing speech therapists and social workers and occupational therapists and audiologists and developmental pediatricians and things like that. And I met this one speech therapist, Anita, and I'll take her, I didn't ask her permission, so I'm not saying her last name, but she sort of showed me how speech therapy really sets the skills and the foundational things for communication. So a person inside their own self can connect with another human being. She didn't say in those words, but she just showed me through her work how you can use speech therapy. And, people think of speech therapists as people who are working with articulation.
Yeah.
That's one component. But the other component is the language aspect of like, okay, so what are you saying? And then when and how are you saying it?
Yeah.
So that's the part that I love, the when and the how. I do the what part also, there's connected. But the when and why and all those components, they spoke to me. So I went to school for speech therapy, and I always focused on making sure that all my internships and everything always had a social skills aspect. And then, through the years, I had such great mentors and, Perry and Shoshana and all these just different people that like really, really helped me understand how language can be used for conversation. And so I was working in the schools and very quickly became very frustrated for a number of reasons.
Imagine.
I was being sent everyone knew that was what I cared about. So there was like a room of 6 speech therapists servicing this school, and I would get all the social skills clients. So first frustration was I had a really hard time getting any of the skills I was doing in my sessions out of the sessions, because you need support. Kids need support. That's part of frontal lobe. Like you need somebody to help you with that reminders and the components. So like you might be able to do it with me in the therapy room because I'm cueing you, but you need that support. So like I would like go to the classroom and like try and talk to the teacher, and with my advanced social skills, notice that the teacher was very clearly communicating they are not available as they settle back into the classroom. So that was that was one frustration. And another frustration was I felt like these kids they had a language component, but they didn't have an emotional regulation to be able to be present with another. So whether it's because they had ADHD, diagnosed on the spectrum, or whatever it was that they were dealing with, there was so much like of the emotion component I didn't feel qualified to work with. So I went back to school for social work, which was the biggest joke, because like I was never like, I always wanted to learn and I like learning, but like I was not like the academic like type, like it's not my thing. But I really wanted to learn these skills. So I went back to school and I learned a lot about emotional regulation. I learned about attachment and relationships and IFS and EFT and lots of other acronyms, and like things that like that to help us understand like, okay, who am I? How can I be present in my own self to be able to then also have the communication and relationship and connection. And so I was working privately and in schools and ABA clinics and this fabulous school, Yaldenu, which I love, and just wonderful. That's where I saw what collaboration can really look like when you have, that's really where I I was like, okay, this is possible. You know, when I went to that school, I saw like, this is really an option for people to be able to work together and to really help students. And then I saw actual progress where it was very hard to see it when I was doing my one-to-one half-hour mandate twice a week, maybe sessions. So that's where I saw, like, okay, collaboration is the key. So those were, let's say, the components that I built the rest of what I did. And I went into the classroom, I started teaching because I was like, the teachers are with the kids all day. So if they can do it, then great. Because then, you know, and then I started teaching and I was like, oh, teachers are the heroes of the world. Because
I'll clap into that after years of teaching.
It's true. And I felt like I was working hard. I was a therapist. I'm working hard. It's like, therapists are great, and I train therapists, and that's what I do. And I train teachers, but you can't until you're in. And I was trained to do social skills. I was trained as a speech therapist and as a social worker. And I was like, great, I'm going to do this. And all I could do was like, okay, I have to finish this many pages of this curriculum and this, and I have to do attendance and get my photocopies out before, because this, you know, the secretary will only do it on these days at this time. I'm like, I didn't have a second for social emotional learning. And you need it because, like, as a teacher, like, there are times like kids can be very challenging, you know, whether they, you know, struggling with, you know, I had a student, more than one, you know, who are on the spectrum in my class, and ADHD, and many undiagnosed kids, and who were struggling, and like being able to, so that what I learned in that experience was a few things. First is I learned how important it is for adult regulation, for an adult to be regulated. And it was such an amazing opportunity because, you know, I always have been working on my own personal development. And I had this time to sort of slide in all the things I've been teaching in my sessions. And like, okay, that kid like just punched me in the stomach. You know, I was like newly pregnant. And like, I just got punched in the stomach. Okay, now what am I going to do? Okay, like, hey, first I have to recenter. Okay. Feeling hurt, I'm feeling threatened, I'm feeling helpless, you know, even though the child's 6 years old, those feelings still come because I've just been attacked, right? All the fight or flight is there. There's not really so much time for frontal lobe. Let me take a deep breath, help my body re-regulate, help myself get back to, you know, more homeostasis. And now I can make a logical decision. Okay, this child needs to leave the room. It's not safe. He's not being safe for the students. Okay, how do I get this child out of the room? And then like there's all the trainings that people take to be able to make sure they're moving a child safely. Or the kid that I remember there was a student who ran to the back of my room and just shut the lights off. Now, if there's ever a time when that makes classroom discipline challenging, you know, and then like literally teaching from the back of the classroom with my hand over the light, you know, and having to have enough like, you know, of my own emotional regulation to get that like, okay, this is my best decision in this time. It's like, okay, I'm going to continue teaching because it'll be reinforcing for the student for me to stop the class and to give them attention, but the light can't be off. Okay, so that's my best solution, you know, and not that it was always perfect, you know, because it's not perfect. It's real life, you know?
It's not a wish, but no.
We're doing our best. We're just doing our best. But that was sort of like when I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way that I can get I can't give the teachers more things to do, but I can give them support. So that was when I developed Skills for Connection curriculum, where I looked into my therapy session, what I was doing in my therapy sessions, and culled out of there that framework of the social skills constructs that the teachers could put into their existing academic lessons without any more work. Like you don't need more time in the day. You don't need to cut out from your math class, which you cannot legally for a lot of things. But you need skills, right? So that sort of addressed a bunch of issues because it addressed, as a therapist, I was working with the child for half an hour, but they were getting throughout the day. The teacher was reinforcing those skills with the construct. And they can do it because it's not hard for them. Because like whatever they're taking notes, they're just taking notes using this construct, or they're teaching a regular social studies lesson, but they're using the skills that of the perspective taking, of the cause and effect, of the problem solving. You know, well, what would you do if you were in charge of the North? You know, let's say in the United States, or what would you do if you were in charge of the South? Okay, well, what was their perspective? Okay, so how do you have a persuasion? All the skills that they're anyways teaching about paragraph writing and structure and all these things can just be using these constructs that anyways I'm teaching them in their one-to-ones or the therapist is teaching. So that's sort of where I'm at now, is in this place where I'm trying to teach the school therapists all these skills. They become their school liaison to teach their staff how to use these things. So the work they're doing one-to-one in their sessions, or let's say they have a social SEL or regular social skills thing that they'll go into the classroom for, that's their opportunity to start with that integration, start having those connections being made from the one-to-one therapy sessions throughout their day. So these kids, especially the ones who have ADHD, who need those reminders, all kids do, but the ones who have ADHD need those reminders throughout the day are getting it through their math lesson. Yes, math. And through their everything to have this reinforced overall picture. That's what I'm doing now.
Okay, I keep being amazed. I keep saying that, but it's so true. I'm like gobsmacked. So I really like that on your journey, you were like, okay, so the emotional regulation. Okay, so I'm going to go back to school and be a social worker. Okay, teachers, all right, I need to go on, and it's like you kind of went, okay, something's going on here. I'm going to go and find out, and that's what I like. You didn't just ask; you just went and did it. And I think that, I mean, if that doesn't show that you have all the different perspectives, and that is what, for me, is what is shining out of your program, is that you've gone and done all these things. So, right? And that's what
I'm blessed.
Concrete,
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you go.
I'm blessed that, like, I feel like life, the situation, like, I do believe that there's a plan for every person, and my own life situation, like, has led me, like, I had moved, and so then I didn't have my licensure at that time, so, like, it was like, okay, great, this is an opportunity to teach. So, like, I feel like blessed. I feel very blessed that, like, sometimes it's very hard when you have a problem to, like, take yourself out, and, like, I'm working on that, but I don't want to get credit where credit is not due, and just to say, like, I've had the support, and that, like, God, for me, I'm a God person, so had put me in the situations where, like, I was able to do those transitional things. Okay, so now I'm going to try social work, and now I'm going to do teaching, and then to be able to, like, the life experiences, like, I think our journeys are part of who we are, and they're not accidents. None of it. The beautiful, the ugly, the messy, none of it is an accident. I believe, even the painful parts. It's all part of making us who we are. But I'm sorry for interrupting you. I just didn't want to get credit where I feel like it's a gift I've received. And yes, obviously I tried to take my part and do what I can with it. I'm not trying to be humble where it's not deserved.
No,
but
you're all good. Thank you for sharing that, and that's your perspective, and thank you for sharing that. And it is a gift, and you're sharing your gift with the world, and that's incredible. And I also like what you said about that, it's almost like, I always got this saying that, like, it takes a village to build a house, right? And it's the same when you're a teacher and you're only doing so much, and then you teach the kids, or anybody really, right? Any adult or any age, you teach them these skills, and then they go home and they don't have that, or they go to class and they don't have that, then it's not going to be reinforced, right? Because, like you said earlier, it's about repetition. So the fact that you're now spreading kind of your forte to kind of, right, therapists, teachers, leaders, schools, I think is so beneficial, because that child or adult or whoever will get those skills so much more embedded and solidified, because they're happening everywhere.
Right. And that's what I was saying, like, that when I worked in that school, about the collaboration, like, I didn't really know that it was possible until I saw, it's actually possible. School can do this, and a school can, with the correct leadership and with the right vision. And obviously every school has their school culture, there's human beings, and so there's always the dynamic and the challenges. And how many therapists have I spoken to who said, like, well, I tried to go talk to this teacher and they were closed and they weren't open. Okay, so what can I do? What is my choice? What is my place? Let me look again, look what I mentioned before, like, what's my choice now? Not what is the world, not what are they saying, who am I, and what am I going to choose in this space? Who am I going to be in it? That's, I feel like, so when there's pushback, or when there's, this principal's not open, or this teacher's not open. Okay, so what am I going to do in this space right now? Who do I want to be? What do I want to choose? Like that, putting our energies there, and we don't have to waste all our energies with anger, disappointment, controlling things that we can't actually control. It just allows us to, like, center inwards, and that center inwards actually will shine outwards when we do that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm saying wow again. But yeah, and that's really big, and that for anybody, let alone someone with ADHD, really needs to look at within and look at that who rather than what, rather than, that who is such a core essence. And I love that that's what you bring to what you do.
Now, I was thinking about what you said about how therapists often might not see the strength, or a professional might not see the strength of ADHD. And I was just sort of thinking that really the strength would be for us all to look inside ourselves and find that strength. So if someone else doesn't see it, and sometimes we need help. So that's what we find. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a friend. It could be our own, someone was telling me about a WhatsApp group they make for themselves. No one else is on it. And they just post themselves affirmations of things they've succeeded in.
Yeah.
They had a good day and they felt good about something they've said or something that they did, and they reread it, and you become your own coach. You become, okay, I don't need other people to value my ADHD. I know the struggle. I know the gifts, and I know I have a choice of what I'm going to make of it. So if that's not the trend, even though I do see there more and more people are starting to recognize the strength-based approach of who am I? What is my strength? What are my strengths? We become our own strength-based therapists, we can all do it for ourselves. It's easy when we get a partner, get a coach. It's easy when we have somebody else outside of us telling us. It's harder to do it inside of ourselves, but we can also do it that way.
Yeah, and so everybody go on WhatsApp, create your own group. Okay, you heard it here today, but love that choice.
It's not my idea. It's somebody else's. I don't have permission to quote her, so I'm not. But
I love that's such a great idea, and I'm really big on that. Trying to, see it yourself. You might need someone else to help you start there, but then reinforcing that, and I love that choice about
Tasha's here to help you start. This is Tasha helping you start. So don't wait for another moment for somebody else to. This is Tasha right now. Helping you start.
Thank you. That's what I do. I try and empower my clients to do it for themselves, because that's what it's about, right? You're always going to have someone, but I really like what you just said about choice. What are you going to make of it? You have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's crucial.
Maimonides talks a lot about that, how people are so that concept where people you are yourself, and that's all we have. We don't have control over anything else other than ourselves, and that we do have. That at the end of the day, the end of our lives, that's what we have, is the choices that we made. And that's the most beautiful, because no one else can make those choices.
Yeah, no one else is us. Yeah.
Nobody.
So what's next for you, Miriam? What's next?
Well, we have our next cohort is starting for therapists, and I'm trying to make it very concise, very easy, because I know that no one has any extra time, but including myself. But I really I care about these skills, and I really care about sharing them. So I'm doing this cohort. I'm going to try and make it 6 weeks, teach 2 or 3 constructs a week, and then have a Q&A the following. Let's do a training Sunday, and then Wednesday. And it's up to there's a little bit of flexibility, and it could be that I'll make it a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, depending on what the need is. And that's starting soon. That's going to be all the materials, all the constructs, the worksheets that I have that go along with ideas. And then teachers or therapists that have a specific student, I'm going to give that, hour of Q&A time, and whatever questions we can answer during that time, we can try and really help people have that support. That's that's next. And I'm, doing staff trainings and going, teaching the whole school body, so everyone has a consistent approach of what specific construct they're teaching next and how to do that. And my goal is really for every person to become a skills for connection person. So they are using the skills for themselves. They're helping support other people with those skills. And this training, I'm going to try and give as much as I can of all I've learned, so no one else has to go for 2 masters and stuff. And they can just shortcut be able to get this training. So I have a free demo. If people want to email me at Miriam at Skills for Connection. thebubblespace.com. And I don't know if you have a link or something that.
Yeah, I'll put it all below. I was just about to say after all of this will be below.
To be able to get that free demo and see if this is something that could work for you and for what your needs and everything like that. That's what's coming up for me.
Wow, I mean, that's exciting. So I will be the first person emailing you after this for the free demo, because because my face has been open. I've been very, very, it takes a lot for me to keep my attention, especially at this time of night, and I'm fully here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So is there any kind of last things that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I think that idea that we have choice to work on ourselves, to work on our relationships. It doesn't mean we're a failure if we need to. It means that we're human. And that's beautiful, because that's all we get to, all we are is all we choose to do, and who we make of ourselves, and how we can bring our light to other people, all of our own experiences, and bring that to making other people's lives better, making our own lives better through being able to connect others with their whole package, with their wonderful challenges and less wonderful challenges, but being able to connect with ourselves and with other people. I'm just excited for all of you. And if you need any support, I got your back.
Well, thank you. I mean, I thought it could get any better, and then we got that last minute. Thank you so much.
This has been such a treat for me. Thank you so much for inviting me on. And really, it's a pleasure to meet you and to meet, hopefully meet the rest of your listeners. And really, truly, thank you very much.
No, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to come and share your story, because I can tell that it's really touched me, and I think it will other people. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So we thank someone again for coming on, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, to get in. I hope it's not the last from you on here. So yet again, we leave Indigos with another absolutely incredible story and diary, and someone that you may be able to relate to, and also someone that you might be able to seek out help with. So everything that you've said today is down below. All the details of how to contact Miriam are down below. Please reach out to her, because she is an amazing resource. And she's just offered you a free demo. So if you're not going to email, then come on, get on that emails. So, and I'm really, really excited for your book coming out, and I'm really excited for you. So I just want to say, as we finish today's episode, please reach out if you want to share your story with others, because it can make a huge difference. And look out for next week as we drop another episode of Series 3, The World Through Our Eyes. So signing out, Indigos. We'll see you soon. Hang in there and be you. And we're out.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
Today is ending. I'll check in again tomorrow.
Tomorrow is a brand new beginning.
Good night, sweet dreams.
I think tomorrow will be...
Shh.